Hi, friends. My name is Eric Strauss, and I am running for President of the United States in 2024. And I'm additionally launching a writing campaign here for the 2020 election to give those individuals who are in a state, perhaps it's not a battleground state, to have an opportunity to meaningfully impact politics without voting for one of two not qualified candidates. So, as part of this series of videos, I'm addressing particular policy areas or political topics that people seem interested in or that I think are worth discussing in hopes to give you an idea of who I am and how I am as a candidate, and also to bring some hopefully new insight into these political issues. Tonight's issue is UBI, or a Universal Basic Income. It's a popular issue. Yang, as candidate, suggested that he supported a UBI. But the real question I'm asking tonight in this video is UBI a pipe dream? Is it possible for a candidate to meaningfully present a UBI policy proposal? So typically, the problems with any UBI policy proposal is that they either don't address funding, or they address funding by saying that you're going to replace existing programs with UBI. Now, there's a lot of good reason to think that that's a good idea. That to the extent that we have existing social programs that are assisting people, most of the negative impacts of those kinds of social programs emerge from means testing, which is to say, whenever you have goods or services that you're providing to people instead of cash payments, and those goods and services are provided according to level of poverty, then you incentivize poverty and you create a cycle where people have a good reason to attempt not to get ahead by themselves. This creates problems, as happened in Seattle, where they raised to a living wage of $20 an hour, and a lot of people had to cut back on their hours so they could retain their federally subsidized housing. Now, this is not if we have social programs that incentivize poverty and incentivize people staying where they are in a socioeconomic status and not rising up, then that's a problem. So that it doesn't necessarily mean that all redistributive policies, namely all ways of redistributing taxpayer dollars, in a way that's more equitable than the naturally occurring spread of wealth, because income inequality and wealth inequality are significant issues for a lot of people. So, first of all, let me just answer that simple question. A UBI is preferable to any other kinds of assistance provided. It's preferable to food stamps. It's preferable to low cost or free healthcare or anything like that, because all of those things require means testing, and means testing means incentivizing poverty and additionally getting people locked into structures of living that require them to stay that way, But it's another way of saying incentivizing poverty, I guess. There are other impacts of in-kind benefits, which always link to means testing, which include market distortions and stuff, which I won't necessarily get into now. But so it's not a crazy notion to think that a UBI is preferable. However, in order to meaningfully fund it, most people would defund other programs, and that becomes a rather substantial political undertaking. It's not impossible, but if you're talking about restructuring the whole approach of the federal government towards social programs in that fashion, you're likely to end up with kind of a messy bill, which is to say, you're trying to tackle something big project-y like that, such as the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. It gets muddled with a lot of writers' addendums and so forth, and then you may end up with something which, like the Affordable Care Act, does the opposite thing that it would ideally do, which is it doesn't meaningfully address the free rider question, because it prohibits the kind of insurance that would most meaningfully address that, namely high deductible, catastrophic healthcare insurance that does not prioritize preventative medication and stuff. By insisting that every health plan offered included all that garbage, we've guaranteed with the Affordable Care Act to increase the cost of healthcare and to reduce its overall link to actual need, which is not a good thing. So, now back on to the issue of a UBI, a Universal Basic Income. If we are trying to avoid that kind of disastrous mega bill that Obamacare turned into be, no matter how positively you may think about it or whatever, the devil in the details kind of killed it, even if you like the idea. How do we prevent that with the UBI? Well, the answer is it needs to have its own funding mechanism independent of Congress, basically. And I have in my platform a plan for this, which involves also launching a crypto USD. My notion for the crypto USD as it's evolved has come to represent the following architecture: that there needs to be built into the currency some sort of mechanism by which anytime the currency enters into a formal financial institution, that is, say, a bank or what have you, that it automatically is converted into regular US dollars, and that a 4% or a 2%, depending on, I have to do the, I mean, I'm going to need a lot of help to hammer out all the specifics of this, and I'm certainly no expert on blockchain technology or anything like that. Obviously, it's going to take the right people in place to make sure this is operating properly. But the idea is that there be essentially a rake every time it passes through the house on this cryptocurrency, and that this rake would be directed through the Treasury, but in ways that cannot be touched by Congress, or possibly even through an independent Treasury-like entity of some sort, directly back into payments to the people. Now, this means that the amount of the UBI is going to link to the amount of transaction performed with this currency. I have another plan. Another aspect of the plan is how the currency launches and how it's mined and so forth, and other elements like that link in here to hopefully guarantee the UBI rises over time, and the value of the cryptocurrency rises over time, and that it's stretched out over a long enough time that we can say essentially it's solved until the mining period runs out. When the mining period runs out, then you're going to start seeing diminishing returns, presumably, on the UBI amount. But if that's 100 years down the road, I've done a great job as president in implementing this UBI that's both self-sustaining, untouchable by Congress to be stolen or redirected to something else, right? And that actually provides people a meaningful universal basic income, so that for people who just, they'd rather have the minimum in terms of fanciness of life and the maximum in terms of free time, that's actually possible. It's possible on the backs of everybody who's engaged in meaningful work and commerce, perhaps, but at least distributed in a fair way. Because universal basic income, everybody gets the same thing. Whether you are rich or poor, you get the same thing. Now, there's a lot more we can do to increase progressivism that involves a lot of times, with the tax code anyway, eliminating progressivism from the tax code. Things that are presumed to be progressive in the tax code typically are regressive, or a lot of them are. For example, capital gains taxes. I don't want to revamp the entire tax code because I don't think it's really plausible as a political goal. I don't want to present goals that I don't think it's even conceivable for me to achieve. My UBI plan is conceivable to achieve because it doesn't require us first dismantling existing bad infrastructure in order to replace it, and it doesn't require us to add additional funding mechanisms for money we don't have. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video on UBI. I don't want to go into massive amount of detail on it, but I do have my platform up available for people to look at, and this is contained within it. It's actually a little dated. I need to update it, and I need just some parts of it that are unfinished. I need to finish, but I'll put a link up, and I encourage anybody to offer any insights here, thoughts, comments, what have you. And I also strongly encourage you, especially if you're in a state where you don't feel like your vote's going to really much matter. Like in California, always goes Democrat, so if you were to write my name in, it's not going to put your preferred candidate at risk, regardless of who you prefer. I would strongly encourage you to write my name in, because it would really help me launch my 2024 campaign if I get a little bit of media attention from a writing campaign. And I hope that as I continue this series of videos, you see that this is what a statesman looks like. Somebody who comes in with real policy prescriptions that are based on the real world, and is not simply trying to sell you a pile of ice cream for free. And instead takes seriously the job of being a president and a leader, and of solving the nation's problems and empowering the nation's peoples in ways that are both sustainable and legitimate. That's my goal, and I hope you will vote for me. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless America.